What's good?
What's good?
Oh, go ahead now. Go
No,
ahead.
no.
See, no. You go ahead.
All right,
You
all
go
right.
ahead.
What's good, everybody? This is Derek Kirby, aka DDP, joined again by Big Game James. This is Positively Relentless, and we have got some interesting Mavericks talk, some interesting Cowboys talk as well to get into here. This is going to be a fun one. I think I got a good energy right now. I've been frustrated all day dealing with all this grid crap, so I'm extra amped, I guess, for whatever reason, which is ironic because the grid's going to shut down. So
I mean, I like that. I mean, if you're gonna be amped, I'm gonna be amped. Shout out to everybody that's jumping in the building. You know what I'm saying? Get on in here. We're gonna have that good Mavs, good Mavs, good Cowboys talk, but definitely get some good Mavs talk because interesting things have been happening. But I'll tell you one thing. Me and you was talking about that rookie over there, that Jaden Hardy guy.
yep.
He went kind of crazy, but they got another dude over there, so it's gonna be some good talk because at least Dallas you haven't been excited about the draft with Dallas, like to me lately, but guess what? I kind of got excited about that kid and the guy he ain't even signed yet. Get him.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a good one for sure. Maverick Summer League has been interesting so far. Like there's been some, like, obviously everyone went nuts in the debut of Hardy, which we'll get into, but much more ho-hum follow-up performance from him. And they definitely have a need here, which, hold on, I'm going to switch off the logo because it's covering part of the chat. We want to have everybody's comments there shown and not obscured. But the other guy they got there, Lawson, we definitely are going to have to talk about him a little bit because I think he's worthy of a good look on this team as a two-way contract. But yeah, so what's good with you? What's new?
I mean, just grinding, staying on the grind. The main thing I really been doing, and like I tell everybody, I've been doing the interviews with the young kids out there, like a lot of football players. I have a girls basketball player, first girl, young lady, excuse me, young lady. We're supposed to be having her Sunday, but I've been doing the high school thing. Started in school with it, came back with it, and just really been going hard with the interviews. And so, like I said, I'm excited to have the first young lady on there. She plays basketball, really nice basketball player. I think her mom's going to be with her, so we're going to have her on Sunday, and then have another couple good, strong interviews this weekend. So, just been
Nice.
doing that, working and grinding. It don't really change my way for real. For real, I know you got a whole new thing that's been going on for the last few years. What's been going on with that?
We talking Prospect 3.0?
No, I'm talking about the baby, the lady, all that good
Okay,
stuff. I ain't talking about no daggone prospect.
I was like, man, put me on the spot. I wasn't really ready to
Nah,
go into all
hell
that.
no.
No, yeah, no. Daughter just turned 2, so it's definitely very exhausting keeping up with her. But she's good, man. Good, happy, healthy baby. Just started. It's like she's starting preschool in a couple weeks, but like
Dang.
I know that's already crazy. But she started this week doing some, like, it's basically like a summer school thing, like lead into it, just to kind of get them a little bit acclimated. So she goes a couple times a week for a couple weeks, and then at the end of that, then it's like the actual school year starts. So it's weird. It's a trip to go, like, drop her off at school and everything. So yeah, my world's a little bit shook up already. Just like, wait, how am I already here? It feels like you were just born.
Yeah,
But yeah.
for real. I mean, you know how it is. It goes too fast. I mean, this year is almost over already. I mean, it's about to be August, bro. So
Yeah.
2022 just started. It's almost over. It's crazy how it's all fast. But I got a shout out for a $5 holler right here from Spook. Can you spot us? My bad, Spot. Can you save me? Said, when you gonna hear that old intro? How about them Cowboys for yourself? Oh, we're gonna hear it during the season. I ain't playing none of that stuff during the season. And for real, I ain't even been happy about them Cowboys. So I ain't been wanting to play that song lately. You know what I mean? I was hyped up playing them when they was doing what they were supposed to do. But when they failed in them playoffs, it was almost like I ain't playing that.
But if he's gonna throw $5 your way, then you can hit a sound effect.
I definitely. How about them Cowboys? Click clack Cowboys.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you hear it soon. They got to get back to doing what they're supposed to do. That's the main thing with me. But shout out to everybody in the chat. Good to see everybody. Like I said, everybody's jumping on in. Appreciate all y'all. We're gonna, like I said, heard JJ the Mind say he's a Warriors fan. I want to ask him, how long you been a Warriors fan? I ain't trying to hate, but how long you been a Warriors fan? You been a Warriors fan when they had Baron Davis and them. How long you been? You know what I'm saying? I need to see.
Yeah.
I need to see paperwork on that.
For sure. But yeah, it's going to be a good one, I think. So we want to jump into, let's see, first up, what do we want to take a look at here? We got, you know what? It's not a segment, but we can touch on it a little bit. So the Brunson to New York Knicks deal is done at this point. And no sign and trade happened. That's the only thing that was kind of going on for a while. Dallas had some conversations with the Knicks. It sounds like there was even a dinner meeting at some point. And ultimately, the Mavericks just didn't really have the leverage, so to get anything done in a sign and trade. I don't know how it would have fit in that, but JaVale McGee was also the official signing of that was also a little bit delayed, and so I'm curious how that was possibly going to fit into anything. But ends up going for nothing, so they lose Jalen Brunson for nothing, and the Knicks, they missed out on trading for Murray from the Spurs. And he ends up going to Atlanta. But now they're apparently getting real aggressive trying to get Donovan Mitchell from the Jazz, which if I'm any team in the NBA that's like looking to add like a real scorer, at least, you got to be doing that because the Jazz are in a situation where they're basically ready to blow everything up,
ready to start over.
Yeah, so you got to call on him. And as I said previously, the Knicks have the second most first round picks the next 7 years, next to only the Thunder. And like the Thunder have like a whole embarrassing horde of first round picks. Like they have so many picks in the next like 5 years alone. But the Knicks have like 9 or something as well. So they've got the capital to make something like that happen. The hilarious thing about that possibility to me, though, is while you might have a starting backcourt that could drop 60 a night, they'd give up 63.
Right, the defense. Where's that defense going to be? And New York's known for being that tough, gritty defense. That's what they've always been their kind of mantra, be shutting you down on defense. So, yeah, you can't be coming up scoring all them daggone points and then you ain't holding up on no defense. He said, he was back when it was Monte Ellis. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Okay, but he still need to go look for them. I'm gonna think about some old Golden State Warriors on them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But yeah, we'll see how that kind of goes. I mean, they were talking about that. I'm gonna keep it real, dog. They was talking about that stuff, how they was gonna eat dinner and all that stuff with Jalen Brunson.
Yeah,
I told you, I had the tweet out there when Luka came back, and I still felt like this was in my heart. I know his pops was over there, and I know that probably had a pull to it, but I just felt like in my heart, I'm gonna just stay with this. When he was turning up in that series against Utah and Luka came back, I still feel it was like, okay, I kind of got the taste of this. I'm ready to kind of do this. And this ain't nothing against Luka. It's just I feel like I'm trying to ready to spread my wings because I can do this on a nightly basis and I'm not going to be able to do it with Luka. I feel like that's what really happened, big dog.
Yeah. Shout out to Pee
Wee.
With Dad Reads 97 for the $9.99 super chat donation. He says, with Dak running about the football again after dropping the weight and using Pollard more like San Francisco used Debo, do you think it'll open up the pass game more, or who will be our top wide receiver? We can touch on that answer real quick right before we jump into this first segment.
We can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're asking me about it, listen, if you want honesty over here, I don't really, I need to see, Dak dropping weight, says the best shape of his life. Yes, that's all good. But, I don't know if he's still going to run. I have to see that. Using Pollard, we heard about him playing more in the slot during mini camps and things of that nature. I'm sure they're going to try to incorporate him in training camp. My thing is, let's see it. I think the top receiver is going to be CeeDee Lamb. I mean, it's all poised for him to be the top receiver. This is his 3rd year. Amari Cooper is gone. He's already got rapport with with Dak, and he's already had, I mean, he had a hell of 5 targets last season with Amari Cooper and those guys. So I don't see why that would back off, especially when they want him to break out. They want they want him to be that guy. So I'm sure they're
Yeah.
going to let him try to be that. But like I said, I need to see what Pollard, big dog. It sounds good. They said it last year. I know it's his contract year, but talk is cheap in my book. Let's see it on the field. So until I see it on the field, I'm not really going to believe certain things with that.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And as much as I want to see it from the team as a whole, like Dak looking better than ever and everything, I want to see Kellen Moore show an ability to adapt and evolve and get better in his own right. Like for all the crazy hype he had through the first half of last season, man, I don't know of many assistants who ended the season with a flatter note. Like he went from soaring highs to crashing lows as far as his stock, it felt like. So yeah, I want to see it from him. And if he can actually implement Pollard consistently, I don't think it's going to be like Debo, but if you can implement your guys to their strengths and play the mismatch as well, then I think you're going to give yourself a lot more opportunity to make things happen. Because we've said before, we don't think this roster is as talented as it was last year. It still has some very talented guys, but it's not as deep as it was last year. And so I feel like to overcome that, you have to be able to win the battle of execution and coaching at times. So that's where I think more is more crucial than ever.
Yeah, I'm gonna bounce off that, and I feel you, especially with the Moore thing, that he's got to be better as far as coaching. I mean, and I said this. I mean, he's 33 years old. He's had 3 years as an OC. 2 of the years he had the number one offense as far as yardage, and it was going that route until Dak got hurt. So you can put the points on the board. They had the number one points in the league. I think averaging like 31 a game. Dallas, I believe, was number one. So it's not that he can't put the points on the board. It's not that he can't have offense. The problem is that when you have a defense that can maybe shut you down in one area, what they said the going thing is about him, can you adjust? Can you change up? Can you really do a chess match with these other guys? And that's what it has to be. It can't be we've been going hard and then all of a sudden we get smacked in the face. We have to be able to readjust and make those adjustments. And I think that's what everybody's kind of looking at what Kellen Moore is going to be able to do this year. And so the eye should be on him, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's roll into our opening segment here. Let's talk a little bit about the Mavericks here. At a recent summer league game, Jason Kidd was on with ESPN during I think it was either the pregame or maybe it was the halftime, and he was talking with the panel about the upcoming season, and he gave some interesting insight into what the Mavericks starting lineup is going to look like. It's always a little bit of a trip for me. Maybe it's just post Carlisle, how weird it seems to me to kind of be so forthcoming about your anticipated starting lineup. I remember last year, similar situation when he was saying something this early. I was kind of like, okay, we'll see what it actually is. And then damn sure it was pretty much exactly what he said. So we'll see. But I'm gonna roll the dice here. We're gonna try and play the clip, see how this goes. So let me bring this in.
JaVale McGee, but you lost Jalen Brunson. What's the plan to replace him?
Well, we can't replace Brunson. He's a great player. I'm happy for him and his family signing a deal in New York. It's well deserved. We wanted him back, but he picked New York. But when you talk about Christian Wood and Tim Hardaway coming back, everybody's asked this question, and we believe the points will be there, and we believe we're going to be a bigger team. Nothing against JB's height, but with Spencer starting, our starting five is going to be big with JaVale starting at the center, and then we believe we're going to have a lot more offense coming off.
JaVale McGee.
Sorry about that. So interesting comment there. We've gotten a little bit more insight since then in the last maybe 24 hours or so, but he initially intimated that, okay, so Dinwiddie and JaVale in the starting lineup. We know when JaVale signed, he signed a 3-year, I think $17.2 million contract is what it ended up being. And initially it was reported as 20, but the difference of that went to signing Jaden Hardy and signing him so that you'll at least have him restricted after that, I think after the 4th year. So they at least avoided the Brunson thing repeating there. But the thinking was, okay, so McGee as a starter, Christian Wood had said like he didn't have a problem with starting at power forward. And you're like, ooh, okay, so what, like 6'10", 6'11", or is your front court? Like, that's an uber athletic front court. I like that. Dinwiddie in the starting lineup. Okay, so Hardaway is going to keep coming off the bench. When he mentioned having more firepower coming off the bench, that kind of confused me because I was like, well, Brunson was a starter for you. So if he was still here, it's not like you would have less firepower coming off the bench. If anything, you're having to move a former bench guy to the starting lineup to kind of offset that. But I kind of looked at it as like, all right, they probably have another move in them, but let's see. Well, the context apparently is that Christian Wood is expected to come off the bench. Apparently, at least as of now, that is the plan. That's an interesting thing. I will say that does give you, from a production standpoint, that does give you points off the bench. You're talking about a guy averaging like 18 and 10, shot 39% from three. You're going to put him against second unit guys. Yeah, he should be able to wreak some havoc, but he's, according to early reports, not thrilled about the idea. What do you think?
I mean, I feel him in that aspect. That's not what he came over in his probably eyes to do. He probably came over like, I'm gonna be this double guy. I'm gonna be this athletic guy. I'm gonna be catching the oops guy from Luka. Like, this is how we're gonna do it. So I'm sure when you get traded or you get picked up from another team with the expectation that this is what you're gonna do, you were getting those extended minutes, and that's what we were talking about it off air. That's why you were getting that double because you was getting those minutes to get the double. So now you're thinking like, am I going to be able to get those minutes? Yes, I'm playing against the second unit. The only thing I would think about this, DDP, is how sometimes, like they did some players, that they would come off the bench, like a Vinny Johnson or something like that, that they would come off the bench, but they would end up playing heavy minutes, like 30 something minutes a game. You didn't start it, but you pretty much ended up finishing the game, and you end up seemingly being the starter toward the end of the game anyway. So that's the only way I could look at it as a positive light in my eyes, because I feel like, he needs those minutes to be able to get those numbers. And if you're going to cut those minutes and to bring him off the bench for firepower, kind of don't like that, especially when you're talking about starting JaVale McGee. You shouldn't show me that stat when you send it to me. He's better when he doesn't have extended minutes. He's better in limited minutes. So if you're just trying to say, well, he's just going to be the starter, play those early starter minutes, because we've seen that in the NBA and we've seen that on teams, that they'll be the starter, play those early minutes, and then they go to the bench. You don't really see him again until later. You know what I mean? So that could be maybe the mastermind plan from Jason Kidd. That's what I maybe be thinking in my head. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I agree. McGee has been more impactful in limited minutes. And that's not to say 12 minutes or something like that. But I think I don't want to overexpose him. He is mid-30s at this point, and his deal is a 3-year deal with a player option in year 3. So it would not surprise me if it's really like a 2-year thing. But yeah, I pretty much think they're trying to address the defense. That's what I really think. Like, as good as they were defensively last year, I think they're trying to shore up the defense as best they can, because they know, hey, Luka can be a capable defender. He'll never be a great defender. Brunson's not here, so the starting lineup, the backcourt's not at least as defensively hampered as it was before. But Dinwiddie's an average defender. And then you have, because the lineup they're projecting here at this point, you're talking Luka, Spencer Dinwiddie, Reggie Bullock, Dorian Finney-Smith, JaVale McGee. So you got both your absolute best defenders in the starting lineup. And that's an interesting choice to me. Now, having that kind of 3-point shooting on the perimeter is nice, because both of them are great catch and shoot 3-point shooters. But I do wonder then, looking at it from that perspective, okay, even if we have plenty of scoring coming off the bench, defensively, what do we have on the bench? Frankie Smokes and Maxey, those are the only two guys I would say have any sort of defensive pedigree to them off the bench. And both of them are, they're not like names where you say that around the league and people are like, oh, great defender. It's like, no, they're good defenders and they have their moments, but it's not like they're established brands in that way, at least beyond Dallas.
Well, I know one thing: Spencer Dinwiddie going to have to play better, because, see, he was, he played, that big game in Phoenix when Dallas had that blowout, and he turned up, had almost like 30 in the 30 for the game. But this thing can't be no one-time thing. He a lot of
Yeah.
times he was missing bad shots. He had good looks. A lot of times he had good looks, was just missing them. And then was going to the hole. It just looked indecisive. I didn't understand why he was playing like that. So if Jason Kidd is talking about starting Spencer Dinwiddie, he's got to step his game up. He's got to play better, and he's got to be more assertive, and he's got to score points, because that's the whole point. If they're going to put you out there, and Luka's going to get to the hole and he's going to give you them shots. You got to make them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, his postseason was incredibly inconsistent. He had a couple, like maybe 2 or 3 games total where he was sensational. He was a big part of that Game 7 blowout in Phoenix. It was him and Luka just murdering the Suns in the first half. And he had a great game in Game 6 against Utah when they closed it out on the road. So he had a couple moments, but largely other than that, yes, I agree. But largely other than that, he was okay or just outright bad. Now, if you look at his 23 regular season games with Dallas, I would say it was almost the complete inverse. I would say you could probably only find a few games out of that 23 where he wasn't very good. And the first couple I could point to were in his first maybe 3 games. He probably had 2 of his first 3 games were kind of ho-hum. And then he exploded and took off. So whether it's that he's kind of like a Hardaway Jr. and that he's just streaky. If he's hot, he's hot. If he's not, he's, oh God, he's not. Or if it's, maybe it's just a playoff thing. He doesn't have a lot of playoff experience. So I don't know. We kind of have to see. But I get the idea. You keep another guy that's capable of putting the ball on the deck and making some plays happen. Again, we talked about that in the comparison between Hardaway and Dinwiddie. Hardaway can create for himself. He doesn't create for others. So this is a way to kind of replace Brunson in the most logical way. And I said in the Dinwiddie trade at the time, like, okay, this is your Brunson insurance. Well, now they're using the policy, and yet we're, for some reason, and this includes myself, when I saw the news, was kind of like, oh, that's a curious move. And then I was like, wait, this is literally what I said was going to happen. Why am I suddenly looking at this as if this wasn't the expected thing? So you keep 2 ball handlers on the floor. I would say the combination of Luka and Dinwiddie is better defensively than Luka and JB. And, you're going to work with that. And then you're basically going to say, okay, our forwards and our center are all defensive standouts. All of them rebound well for their position. So that should do something, that should kind of shore up a somewhat suspect defensive backcourt. So I get where they're coming from for that.
Well, like I said, we'll see. So we'll see how it goes, kid. He had a pretty successful go round. It's always harder to come back in that next year to be successful again, especially when you made that run that nobody thought getting to those Western Conference Finals. There's going to be a lot of expectations. So we'll see. Like I said, I told you, I always like Jason Kidd as a coach.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to go ahead and trust what he's trying to do, and see how it goes, and like I said, we'll see how it goes. But, while we're talking about Christian Wood and those guys, we was talking about them rookies and them young guys, how they was looking at that summer league, dog. And,
Yeah, the summer league. So let me jump over to, we'll just call this Mavs grab bag. So let's talk a little bit on Hardy here, the Mavericks 2nd round pick. Everyone by now probably fairly familiar with his sort of pedigree. He, in his first game, had 28 points, and it was like 28 points, 3 assists, and a steal in 33 minutes against the Bulls in his debut. Very efficient. I want to say he was like 9 of 15 or something like that shooting. And he was doing well. Like, he showed an ability to attack off the catch. He was effective in transition. One thing that I did see, at least in that game, that was a little bit of a red flag for me. I felt like he struggled a little bit in the pick and roll, and Dallas is a heavy pick and roll team. So that's one of those areas. Everyone got incredibly hyped. Like, I mean, literally people were making YouTube videos calling it the steal of the draft, and maybe it will be, but I get so frustrated when people are that reactionary. Like, it's a summer league game. We see dudes drop 50 in a G League or a summer league game, maybe not a summer league, but a G League game, and then they get called up or something, and then they're just like a dude on the bench, or they're like 7 points. Like, it's it's not the same. There's the gap between those developmental levels and the actual show, if you will, to borrow a baseball term, is immense. So maybe Hardy can do that. Obviously, you like to see this, but then he comes out the next game and he struggles immensely. He has 11 points, 6 rebounds on 4 of 15 shooting. Like, that's the follow-up game. It's the highs and the lows back to back. And that's why I keep saying, like, be patient with the kid. Give him a chance to develop. Like, his benefit here, Carlisle would have never given him the opportunity to develop. The only guys, and I don't say this to disparage Rick or whatever, but the only guys that Dallas really developed in Carlisle's tenure was Maxey and Dorian Finney-Smith. Now, to be fair, he made them very serviceable role players. Dorian is actually getting a lot of attention now around the league. I think Maxey's kind of on the downtrend, but at least Dorian is still stock rising. So credit on that, but he's had other guys like this that had immense talent and potential, and a chance to reach for a high ceiling and not even come close. And a lot of that just boils down to them not getting the opportunities. And when you think about how many years the Mavericks were irrelevant, you're like, how do you have this young kid on the bench and you're not playing him? How are you not giving him a chance? Whether it's Ricky Lito or whoever, like, how are you not getting minutes out of this kid to give him a chance to develop? So Hardy's going to have the benefit, I think, with this coaching staff of actually getting to develop, but we're going to have to see it. And I think it's going to be a couple of years, honestly, before he really, in terms of like a playoff contributor, really breaks out and can be a viable piece for you in that respect. So I just want people to tap the brakes and keep that in mind, because it's like, I'm excited about the kid too, but I don't want to get this hyped about him now, where if he suddenly goes on a rough stretch for a while, everyone's just like, oh, he sucks. Add him in a trade for someone else.
That's gonna happen regardless, dog. You already know. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, which everything you're saying is right in that aspect of. I mean, I'm feeling you as far as that. I mean, I was excited, but I'm not jumping up and doing cartwheels like this dude is going to do this every game in the NBA. No, he's not. He's a rookie. He's young. He's got a lot of learning in the NBA. But you like that. You saw potential. That's what you wanted to get excited about. You saw that potential, and with good coaching and growth, and not putting him in the forefront and let him kind of grow into it, then you can see the potential down the line. And that's what I feel you with you. Slow the brakes, just see the potential of what he's doing in the summer league and take that for what it is. It's the summer league, but take it for what it is. It's more exposure for him to get more learning of the game and for him to get more comfortable, like you said. But this is going to be a little bit of time. This is not something where this is going to come in starting next to Luka and then he dropping 20 points a game. No, that's not going to happen. And he's got a lot of learning, like you said, the pick and roll defensively. I mean, they're going to try to eat him up on the pick and roll on defense. They're going to try to kill him. You know what I'm saying? They'll just going to eat him alive. So let's, like you said, pull the brakes, slow it down. But they had another guy out there that he's not even signed yet, but he was turning up too. AJ Lawson. I mean, how you feel about him? Because I mean, he was undrafted out of South Carolina. Went over, but Canadian Basketball League over there.
He was in the Summer League last year.
Okay, with the Hawks.
Yeah. So he was undrafted out of South Carolina. Grew up basically split between South Carolina and Canada. And he last year he had the motor and he had a lot of that heart and hustle and everything. But last season in the G League, he averaged 11.8 points in 32 minutes, shot 48% from the field, and basically a hair below 34% from three. 6.5 boards, that's nice. On the downside, again, this is last year's stats. His free throw percentage was bad, 54.5%, and only 1.7 assists. So that's definitely not what you love, but he's looked much better. And again, small sample size as of now, but he's looked much better Summer League this year. He had 28 points in his Summer League debut, and then he followed that up against Utah with a 15.12 rebound, 2-block outing. So the guy is filling stat sheet. Love that. Love what he's able to bring in that respect. And his coach in the G League with the Texas Legends, Says this is quote, he's been great, such a steady presence. The points, the rebounds, that reflects the activity we see. He's been really solid and consistent, and he plays so hard, but he's always under control, which is hard to find. He's a lot of fun to be around. He's gotten better every time I've seen him. He's improved his shooting, but I think like anybody, if you get a little repetition in the NBA or even the G League level, that game slows down for you. So that's his G League coach with the Legends talking about his development. It looks like he's taken a pretty big step forward, and he's exactly what Dallas kind of needs at this point. Like we keep talking about, there's still some holes with this bench. And I'm not saying like throw him into the rotation now, but you definitely, if he's on your summer league team, you're not wanting to lose the kid. Give him a two-way contract. And hang on to him. Give him some time to develop. It sounds like he's making really strong strides. Good. Hang on to him. Make sure that you can keep him around. So it's like, while Hardy got all the attention and love because, everyone's like, oh, well, he was like the second or third kid in the ESPN Top 100 coming out of high school. And then he was one of those guys that did the unique thing of not even going to college, but going straight to the G League and playing for the Ignite. It's like, yeah, that's great. But you have an opportunity here to address another need in a guy that's been at least a little bit more groomed in that respect, having the full season last year with the G League, and who's shown major strides. So I think you definitely need to take a look at that. You've already got Hardy locked down anyway, so if you add in Lawson, then you're addressing a pretty sizable need, I think, and keeping an interesting prospect around.
Yeah, I like what we've seen from him, and like I think the thing that stands out to me about him is that if you watch him since his freshman year, when he was at South Carolina, he's always worked hard and he's always gotten better. I mean, when he declared and he went back to college, he got better that year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so and then when you talk about him, how he played on this last team, he got better. Even his coach said he continues to get better. He's athletic, can score. Got had like 6 threes in one of those games when he had the 28-point game. So like you said, you like that off the bench. You like that young, good athleticism that can hit the three, get maybe some good defense, a wing, a versatile player, and he's young. And the thing is, he continues to get better, and it's like he wants this. So that's a guy that you really want on the team, and you keep him on the bench and you develop him. This is where you need to get these guys and to be able to develop these guys, like you said, because you got to be able to have that bench play. It may not be like a 10-man rotation, but some good steady minutes that can come off the bench, quality minutes. And this is a young kid that we need to hold on to and get that two-way contract, like you said, and make that happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. Speaking of, we were talking about needs on the Mavericks roster. One of them we've addressed is kind of a conductor, if you will, for the second unit. Well, an interesting point that's been floating around, a prospect that's been, not prospect as in like, oh, up and coming kid, a potential possibility that's been floating around the Mavericks for what feels like 10 years, probably more like 4, is Goran Dragic. We know he signed a vet minimum with the Bulls.
Yep.
The only reason I have him listed in the grab bag here is we did get some perspective to this. So he gave an interview. It had to be translated, so I don't know who the source with the interview was, but he says that this is Goran Dragic, quote, "We were in talks with Dallas. They made an offer, but I decided not to take it. They wanted me to play 1 game and then sit for the next 5. I know I can still easily play 20 minutes per game. I'm not ready to retire and just sit on the bench in a cheerleading role," end quote. So, he's 36, but it's worth saying he wasn't that good with the Nets last year. Granted, he got like nothing of a season because he was sitting out with Toronto the whole time. But I don't understand the logic of like, hey, a vet minimum, I get it, but you have a need for a secondary creator for that second unit, and your thinking is vet minimum is too much. Like, I don't know. Like, it's a weird thing to say, like, oh, we only want to play you like once every 5 games. Like, it's not worth having at that point. You're not playing him like the last season of JJ Barea. That doesn't make sense. If you're going to have him, now to be clear, I'm not saying I think he's worth 20 minutes a night at this point. I don't. If you gave me 12 to 15 minutes, I'd take it. But 20 minutes, if he's going to be doing that in Chicago, if that's why he chose Chicago, because they're giving him that behind Lonzo,
They can have that.
yeah, they can have that, because that just makes me think he's going to come available again at the deadline when he gets cut,
Yeah.
like when he gets waived or something.
He's not that guy that he was anymore. You know what I mean? He's got to understand that, and it seems like he doesn't want to see that. And I see how we've been having the flirtation with him forever, but I mean, like you said, you're not getting those minutes, and maybe, I was reading a little bit article of Mike Fisher saying maybe the Mavericks was too honest with him. Maybe they was just too for like, this is what's going to really be like. We're not going to shuck and jive with you about what this is what it's really going to be if you play here. And I guess he didn't like you said, he didn't like hearing that, and he felt like he probably still had some worth in the league and he wants to play, and that's not really going to happen in Dallas.
No, it sounds like they basically wanted him to be the new Trey Burke, except Burke is still like, he's been around forever, but he's still like 30 or 31, not 36, and he's a slasher. He can get to the basket. So it's a little bit of a curious choice there. I'm not saying that he couldn't provide some good leadership. I'm not saying that he wouldn't be a good presence on Luka, but if you really only envision him being a once every like 5 games guy, then probably doesn't make sense anyway to use a roster spot on that, honestly. Like, you have other needs. You'd be better off, I'd say, at that point, like bringing up Lawson or something, or giving Hardy more burn to at least try and develop something there. But it is what it is. It's not worth mentioning anymore. It's just, I was intrigued by the context of it, because initially there weren't even reports that Dallas really made an offer, because it's like, oh, he wants to be here. Wait, he took a 1-year vet minimum to go elsewhere? Does that mean Dallas didn't even offer? No, apparently they did. They just didn't offer him a role he wanted. So that's his call, but I'm not hurting over it at this point.
I mean, it ain't hurting over it because he's 36 years old, so nobody's tripping over it. But there is somebody else that, me and you was talking about, and I've been heavy on this, Dennis Smith Jr. We've been talking about that reunion. I've been talking it up. I've been trying to speak it in the air. I've been trying to throw it in the air to admit the basketball guys to get it, because, yes, it was kind of weird, but, Rick was here. But now the dynamic, we understand it. That firepower that could be coming off the bench, the athletic ability could come off the bench, could really be a great asset for the Dallas Mavericks. And people still love Dennis Smith Jr., man. I think he would just really fit in great. What you hearing about that, big dog?
Well, the interesting thing with Dennis Smith, obviously it didn't work out here, and a lot of that was just Rick. I mean, Rick decided by the All-Star game, his second season, that he just was done with the experiment. Rick didn't have patience for young guys that he felt like were resistant to it. Like Luka got to get away with it because Luka was generational talent, and and Rick basically was forced to adapt to whatever extent he did, because he had to recognize that. I mean, when Kidd came here with, like, as a player to play under Rick, they butted heads, they clashed, and it was not working through the first year or two that Kidd was here. And what finally turned the corner was, like, basically Kidd had a sit down conversation with him, and it's like, you're going to have to, like, relent a little bit to, like, give me the reins of this. Like, you're talking about an all-time great point guard, and Rick still wanted to map out, like, every play and run things very restricted. That's just always been Rick's style. And when it comes to Luka, Rick had to look at it, and he talked with Popovich about Manu Ginobili. And Popovich kind of used to be that same way. And he basically said, like, look, if you put reins on this guy, you take away what makes him special. And that's what Pop said he had to learn early on with Manu Ginobili. So interesting kind of context there. But I don't think Rick ever...
I mean, even with Tony Parker, too. Because they butted hair early. And he kind of had to let Tony Parker do his thing. Yep.
But Rick never afforded that opportunity to Dennis Smith. And, Dennis Smith was the highest hyped prospect the Mavericks had in years. I mean, he was going to be, like, he was given the keys to the kingdom. Like, he was basically being set up like, okay, you're going to be the next face. And then oh wow, we're in the we're in the lottery again. Oh wow, we're able to get Luka Doncic. All right, well, I don't know. Are we gonna do this as a 1A 1B? No, okay. Are you fine with being the number 2 guy? Ooh, you know what? We're just gonna make a trade. Thanks. Like so crazy the
That was
whiplash effect he
crazy.
had. Yeah, I mean, you get whiplash from something turning on you that fast, but it really, I
Hey,
think
but
it, I think it wrecked
before,
him for
hey,
a
but
while.
before you finish that though, I'm gonna give my own self props on this because you remember when he was turning up and I hit you up, and when
Yeah,
Luca got drafted, I hit you up and I said I said Dennis Smith Jr. gone. They
yeah,
not that's he's not gonna be there anymore. They're gonna get rid of him. I knew he was gonna be gone because they were gonna put Luca as the guy and they were gonna just throw Dennis Smith Jr. to the side. I felt it, I could see it instantly, and you could see how Rick was doing it.
yeah. No, you definitely were one of the first people saying that that was going to be the case. I was hopeful that they could work it out where Dennis could at least slide into a number 2 option. And early on, you had some glimpses that that could be possible. But man, 20 games into that season, it was apparent that like Dennis had fallen down in the pecking order and it was going to be Luca's thing. And that's not Luca doing anything. That's not anything. It's not even a wrong decision by the Mavericks. It's the obvious decision, but it's definitely something that was tough for Dennis. And I think between the trade going to the Knicks, which
That
I
messed
mean,
up his brain.
yeah, I mean, it's a little better there, I guess, now than it was. But at the time, man, that's a toxic fan base and like incredibly starved for
Brutal.
something good. So, as he struggled like a young player does, suddenly put into that situation where they didn't have a lot of talent around and he had to carry things, suddenly it's like the weight of the world was on him. And if he struggled for a while, they got on his ass and he didn't have, I guess, that mental fortitude
Fortitude.
to really endure that and to persevere. And I think it got in his head and it messed him up. And then
hmm
he got injured. He kind of
hmm
stayed injured for a couple of years. He had a
Probably
swim
sulked.
through, yep, a swim through Detroit that didn't go all that great. I think his debut was fine, but then it kind of went south from there. And then he had about 20 games last year with Portland, and that's it. Like it just didn't go anywhere. And like his best game last year, I think he had a 17-point game for the Blazers at one point, but he hadn't found any consistency. And so you look at it and you're like, okay, well, he's 24 years old. Even still,
That's
he's still
crazy.
he's still uber athletic. And the conversation here, and the reason we're doing this segment is we're talking about the potential of a reunion. This is a breakdown from Basketball Index comparing 2018-19 Dennis Smith Jr. So that is his last season in Dallas
hmm
/ his first season in New York. Comparing him against Josh Green last season. This is the metrics comparing like head to head who's better on this. Perimeter scoring or perimeter shooting, Dennis Smith Jr. Off ball movement, Josh Green. One-on-one, Dennis Smith Jr. Finishing, Dennis Smith Jr. Roll gravity, Dennis Smith Jr. Playmaking, Dennis Smith Jr. Post play, Dennis Smith Jr. Perimeter defense, Dennis Smith Jr. Interior defense, Dennis Smith Jr. Would not have guessed that. Perimeter defense and interior defense, both Dennis Smith Jr. Offensive rebounding Green, defensive rebounding Green. Impact, Dennis Smith Jr. So you look at it in that perspective and you say, okay, you want to talk about an impact player, a guy that is a tougher variable to prepare for. Dennis Smith Jr. head to head, at least, looks to be that dude. And so is that worth considering given Green was the last kind of Carlisle pick? I know there was all that craziness and confusion over who the Mavs kind of even wanted or who wanted who in that draft. But the last era of the Carlisle setup is Josh Green. And so it's not Kid's guy. It's took a while last year for him to kind of get into the lineup and in the postseason. Ooh, you could not have him on the court in the postseason, man.
Remember, we was talking about it back and forth when we was texting. As soon as he got in there, we was like, man, take him off the court.
Yeah.
He's just a liability.
Yeah, he had, I think, one good playoff game where he had something like 12 or 14 points. And I was just like, dude, that's like the best thing he's done all year. Like, that is everything for him. But, and I'm not saying that like Dennis Smith Jr. is the answer there. But what I am saying is Josh Green, as far as like he was drafted to be a 3-and-D guy, and maybe he can still be that. He plays with a lot of heart, a lot of effort. He's a nice nice enough prospect as a defender, but the 3-point shot is not there. The confidence is certainly not there.
No.
And even the high end athleticism that was kind of promoted with him. I see athleticism, but
he just looked lost.
If I'm putting his athleticism head to head with Dennis Smith Jr., I'm taking Dennis Smith Jr. The biggest crack on Dennis Smith Jr. from like a athlete standpoint is his hands are small. Like that was the crack on him the 2 years he did the dunk contest was he doesn't have all overly large hands, and so he struggled with palming the ball through some of these trick dunks and everything. So I get it, but I don't know. I look at that possibility and I say, like, Green, I still think if Dallas makes another move and that it involves multiple players, which I still feel is probably going to happen. I feel like there's something still looming, building, whatever right now. And if that's the case, I think Green is one of those guys that goes. So I'm just saying, you got a 24-year-old who's expressed a want to be here, who was someone that you thought highly enough about to give him a real shot once before. Now him coming in with kind of an adjusted role and dynamic. He's not coming in here being told, hey, here's the keys to the kingdom. You are the heir apparent to Dirk. This is your team. I think he gets it at this point. Like, he has that context of like, okay, this is Luka's team. I can be a good supporting role player here, and I can still be someone, because this, I mean, if you're talking about a guy looking for a place he belongs, you said it yourself at the top of it. I feel like most Dallas fans do still want the best for Dennis Smith Jr., and they do want to see a reunion of some kind. So if you're talking about taking a flyer on a guy like that, I don't see any reason it has to be a bad thing. Like, he's certainly not a defender like Ntilikina. He's not like that, but he can give you more offensively. And I'm not saying to take him over Ntilikina, to be clear. I'm saying, like, if you're making that conversation about Josh Green or him, maybe that's worth considering. And especially because I think Green is probably going to be combined in one of these deals somewhere between now and the start of the season.
Yeah, man. Like I said, they need to make that happen to me. Unless Dennis Smith Jr. just totally flops in his workout, just look trash, terrible. That's the only way you wouldn't take this. Like he said, he's expressed the interest. The fans love him here. They didn't have the love for him in New York or the Detroit or the Portland. He was just throw-ins after that. And like you said, now there's the understanding. You don't have the Rick Carlisle here. You got the Jason Kidd, who should be able to deal with Dennis Smith Jr. mind, because he's a point guard, so he should be able to mesh that for him. This will be a great addition, especially coming off the bench. We need that athleticism, running that point guard position, getting to the hole. I think his defense will be even better because he has the athletic ability to be a great defensive player, has the athletic ability to be a great defensive player. So let's man, I just feel like this is one of those marriages that just has to happen. This is one of those things that it has to happen. The second go around will be better because there's better understanding of what the roles will be.
For sure. So I looked up here. In his 101 games with Dallas, he averaged 14.5 points. His percentages weren't great. 40.6% from the field, 32% from three, basically just a hair under 70% at the line. So those aren't great, but he did average 5 assists per game, showed promise as an energetic defender who could generate a lot of steals, and he even showed times where, when properly motivated, he could clamp guys down on defense. Like, he could lock guys up. You remember one of the moments for me that stands out most for Dennis Smith Jr. was against the Clippers in his rookie year. No, his sophomore season for him, his second year. Luka was injured at the time, not playing, and Dennis Smith Jr. basically had to run the show. It was still earlier on in the year, and Patrick Beverley, scrambling for a loose ball, knocks out his front tooth and stays in the game, plays the rest of the game, and he's still sticking his nose in there and playing hard-nosed defense on the Clippers. Comes up with the game-sealing block shot and on a post-up possession. They posted up your point guard, ISO, to win the game, and he jumped up and swatted the dude's shot as he was going up with it. Like, that's impressive. And I'm trying to remember off the top of my head who it was he blocked. I want to say it was still Paul Pierce, but I can't remember if timeline-wise that works right, because it wasn't Paul George yet. But yeah, regardless, incredible play from him, and so gritty. the fact that he's doing it smiling without the tooth and everything, just very endearing. Shows how properly motivated you have a guy who will give you his everything. And the fact that the supporting cast here now is so many light years better than that team, I really think that he could find a nice role here, and a nice role that can make the team better. He addresses a need they have. Why not?
And it's not going to be a lot of money, so it's a win-win situation for everything.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Let's see. So we want to roll into some of those Cowboys.
Yeah, man. I hear everybody been chirping about the Cowboys. You know, we're going to be talking about a little bit about that offensive line because, you know, I've been seeing a lot of people in the chat talking about Tony Pollard, how they need to be able to execute them, get them out more into the flats, be able to, you know, maybe get them on pitches, things of that nature. But before any of that, that doesn't matter. Any of that happening, we can put them in the slide. Dallas can put them in the backfield with Zeke. They can motion them out. You can do all those things. The offensive line ain't blocking and it ain't doing his job. It don't matter what to do with TP. So that's what we're talking about right now, the offensive line, because it's not what it used to be. It's in flux. And, you know, it's different now. It's real because, you know, you had your first round pick in Tyler Smith. You know, he's going to play, obviously, the left guard with Connor Williams departing over to the Miami Dolphins. He never really was the guy. They tried to make him the guy, but he was never the guy. He never had the prototypical size that you want at the left guard or at a guard spot, period.
He could really hold his own, though.
He can hold his own.
That was
holding.
Yeah.
You feel me? And I think that's what a lot of what was happening his whole career. And even when they were talking about him bulking up, I mean, I saw him when he was a rookie, and then when I got to see him live in the game, I was like, damn, he bulked up. He still looked the same to me. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it just wasn't there. So when you get a Tyler Smith, guy's about 6'4", 6'5", 330 pounds, solid. And he's the real deal as far as that size and the athletic ability and he's mean and he's nasty. And that's not just a joke. He's really mean and nasty. And he wants to get better. I think, you know, a lot of people were suspect on it. I mean, it kind of raised my eyes just because of the competition. Tulsa, they said he had a lot of holding penalties, but I don't think that was a big thing for me, DDP. I think, well, let's get him with some good training, the Duke Mayweathers of the world, the offensive line camps that they have for the NFL players, and he's attending those things right now. I feel like he has the want to. He's from Dallas. I feel like that's an added incentive for him to want to be great and prove people wrong who have anybody doubts. So I feel like, honestly, we were talking about, you know, I kind of threw out there, will he be the guard or end up being the tackle? I actually think he's going to be the starting left tackle eventually and taking Tyron Smith's spot. Yeah, I think he's going to go that route.
I definitely think that's what he is tabbed for. Like, that's what they're projecting him to eventually do. Yeah, I see someone saying if McGovern is starting over him, he'll be pissed. Yeah, that would be a fair assessment.
But here's the thing. Before you jump into that, listen, I'm gonna just say this. People keep dogging Connor McGovern. I'm gonna say this once again. Like, Connor McGovern was trash. He was not trash. Those 5 games he played, he was not trash. You got to understand. He started the first game at left guard. I talked to his father. He was a right guard his whole career in high school. A center, really. He was a center in high school. Was an all-world center. He went to right guard at Penn State, guard center at Penn State. Never, ever played left guard in his whole life. No NFL career, no college, no high school. So they threw him in the fire playing left guard. His first game he starts against is the Kansas City Chiefs, I believe, and that's Chris Jones.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? You went against a good defensive line in the Raiders, the New Orleans Saints. It wasn't like you were playing chop liver guys when they first threw you in the spot, and he held his own. So when people keep on acting like Connor McGovern's trash, he's not trash. He's still young. He's working his butt off, and that's not a fall off when you go to McGovern. Please understand that.
Yeah, I'm not looking at it more from that standpoint. I'm looking at it from, if you took a kid with your number 1 pick this year and he's not starting.
Oh yeah,
that's my concern. As we talked about, like for Joseph, for instance, 2nd round pick, not really starting or contributing for you last year. It's like, okay, if we're gonna have that talk, then if your 1st round pick this year definitely needs to, especially if you're trying to fortify your offensive line. and the guy you take to be your essentially heir apparent to Tyron
Yeah, he should not be
isn't
on the bench.
ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, if that's the case, then yes, something is very
Yeah.
alarming for me. And the thing with Smith that was interesting to me was like how divided I felt like the reports were on him, like the draft experts and everything. Like one person whose opinion I do respect quite a bit is Bob Sturm with his draft breakdowns, and man, he was not a fan early on. And so I think that now, again, I was more removed from following the draft this past year than I had been. Just like you said before, kind of the playoffs still left a sour taste in my mouth, and I was just like, man, I don't, whatever. I'll read about it later. I'm just not feeling this right now. And so I think seeing that kind of analysis from some people whose opinions I really value, I think it kind of colored my perception a little bit. But everything that I've read and seen, like clips wise, everything about him since then makes me think like, okay, maybe he is the genuine article here as far as a valuable prospect for them, someone that can hold that down for you and be the guy for a long time, be dominant in that situation. But he doesn't have the same pedigree as far as, like you said, Tulsa was his school and everything, and there's some stuff he's going to have to clean up, like the holds and stuff like that. But if you got the coaching staff to bring the best out of him, he's got the physical tools and the size and everything, and you can't teach that.
Yeah, well, like I said, I personally don't hate on the pick because I feel like he's wanting to. Like I said, I believe this past weekend he's going to an offensive lineman camp, and I think he's been heavy in that game, wanting to get better. To me, I like that, especially with your offensive lineman. He was already nasty, and I feel like he wants to prove. I feel like he's going to be a good player, so I feel like that was a good pick. Let him grow. He's going to do his thing. The one thing I was saying about with Conor McGovern, yes, I don't feel like he should definitely be starting. What I'm saying is he's definitely he's going to be the capable backup to the left or right guard. But just like I think somebody said in here, and I think I got to find a comment. I'll find it here in a second, but they were talking about, I think it's QDOGG. If I said it correctly, he says, I think Conor McGovern should compete at center. I agree. That's what me and his father were talking about. Like, why don't they let him compete at center? If you had a situation where you had Tyler Biadasz was having problems, right? What was the main thing Tyler Biadasz was having problems with at center? His power. He was getting overpowered in the middle. Well, Conor McGovern doesn't have that issue. He doesn't get overpowered. He was more stout. That's why they liked him over Connor Williams in that aspect, because he was more stout in the middle than a Connor Williams. You weren't moving Conor McGovern just everywhere like that because he's stronger and stout. You know what I mean? So my thing is, if he was an all-world center in high school, he was good at center in college, and they were already experimenting with him last year with them playing center, why don't you give him a chance to let him compete with Tyler Biadasz? Who else do you have as a starting center? Matt Farinaut, who I feel like he could be sneaky because he didn't look bad in that game against the Eagles, even though they were backup. His feet and getting to that second level look very well. So I'm not going to keep, I'm not going to hate on that. But here's the thing, like me and you, I was talking about, Joe Philbin's on the hot seat for me, because Joe Philbin got to develop this offensive line, because this is 3 years with like 6 picks, and I ain't really seen the development from these guys, and they ain't gotten on the field. We need to see what's up with this kid, Matt Farinaut, from Nebraska. We need to see what Josh Ball is from Marshall, and we need to see what the 2 picks that they just got with Tyler Smith, and then they got who else did they get? Did they get another offensive lineman this year? I'm trying to think. Somebody tell me. I don't even know.
I'm not sure, honestly, off the top of my head.
I think they got 2. Somebody else tell me. I think they got somebody in the later round. And then, then they got, some good offensive linemen in the, free agent pool. But like I said, Philbin's got to show, because the offensive in the beginning of the season, and then it faltered at the end. You know what I mean? And everybody's going to be looking at this offensive line, DDP, period.
I mean, that's where their strength is. Like you saw when they dropped down last year, as the season wore on, they kind of dropped off, and you saw the run game that kept things very balanced and allowed Dak to play up to his best drop off. And then, I mean, a lot happened obviously last year. It wasn't just the lack of production from the run game. The last great run game I think I remember from them last year was Pollard against the Saints, and really that's only because he broke the one like 60 or 70
60
yard.
yard, right? He didn't
Yeah,
really
and
have
you
a
take
big
that
rushing
out, and you
game.
take that out,
He
and it
had
wasn't
50 something yards.
yeah. So that was everything. But it's like, yeah, the offensive line definitely its reputation preceding the actual on the field product at this point, and it largely has been for a couple of years. They are, I think they're average or a hair above average, but their reputation still suggests that they are, bullies in the trenches, and that they're kind of brutish and everything. They just manhandle opposing defensive lines, and that's just not the case, man. Like, hasn't been the case for a long time. And as much as as critical as I can be at times about Ezekiel Elliott and what I think he's bringing to the table at this point, it is worth saying I don't think the offensive line and its run blocking has been as good for him either. I think with Zeke, part of my problem is I just don't see him breaking as many tackles. Like, for a while there at the start of last year, you were seeing more of that again, and that was good. But it seems like when he's got to break one tackle, make one guy miss, that's not happening with enough frequency. The burst doesn't feel like it's there like it used to be. So we'll see. We hear every year that he's in his best shape.
But see, that's where we got to see. But see, they say that about Tyron Smith, and he always getting hurt. I ain't going to say that with Zeke. And I'm not jumping on the Zeke train because I felt like, I've been said this ain't the same Zeke. We should all see it's not the same Zeke. But that's okay, because at the end of the day, before he got hurt, I don't care what anybody's saying, Zeke was playing good. Nobody was hating on Ezekiel Elliott before he got hurt. He was running hard. He was getting good yardage. I mean, he was looking nice. Those drills that he was doing, he was incorporating them in them games. So it wasn't like Zeke looked like he just fell off the God Earth planet. You feel me? And people need to, in my head, stop saying that about him. We already understand he don't have the burst. At this point, he's more of a power back. But my thing is, you still need to start that, because guess what? If that offensive line blocks and Ezekiel Elliott plays well in the beginning, that makes Dallas better. I don't care what anybody tells me. When Ezekiel Elliott is running the ball, it makes it easier for everything else. You can incorporate the Tony Pollards and those type of things, and he needs to get the ball. He needs to be incorporated in this offense. But at the end of the day, Ezekiel Elliott is not a trash back, and if he gets going early, it really helps the offense. I think my guy, Washington guy, George Camry, asked me. He said, what's more important, getting CD Lamb or Ezekiel Elliott?
Getting him going?
Yeah, getting the offense going. It's the run game.
Yeah, the run game at this point would still be the case because it opens up more. I don't. It's not that I think Zeke is trash. I don't think he's trash at this point or anything like that. My problem is the balance. I'm fine with him being the starter, but I feel like when they had more success with the run game last year is when you saw it was never 50-50, but it was like 55, 57% Zeke, 45, 43% Pollard. And I feel like that balance worked well. The problem was Zeke got hurt, and I know Pollard ended up getting hurt in the Saints game as well, but it felt like after the injury, suddenly the dosage became heavier on Zeke, and that's what didn't make sense to me. I felt like we were putting him in a position to fail, which I don't think is his fault, certainly, but it's, I don't know the full context either. It could be something where he's just, he would be asked, it seems like every week, hey, you're going to sit out a game? You're going to sit out a game? And he'd say, no, I'm playing through it. And it's like, you look like you should probably sit out a game. Like, my problem is the balance wasn't there. If he's going to be a bruising back and everything, great. Get the value you can, because, that's something you don't have with Pollard. But I think you have to actually strike that balance much better than you did the second half of last season, because when your run game's not working, I don't think you can just try to put in a short yardage bruiser of a running back at that point and break it free.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Kellen Moore, the eyes are going to be on him. You got to be, you don't have to be this weirdo creative guy. You got to just be able to adjust. You got to be creative enough. You got weapons. You got to get them on the field. That's the main thing with me. If you got weapons, and if you're supposed to be those guys, those offensive coordinators that they're talking about being the next coaches, things of that nature, you got to get your playmakers to make plays, and you got to get your playmakers on the field. Tony Pollard is a playmaker, so you need to incorporate that. And they need to get where it stays balanced. I don't like when Dak is throwing 40 times a game. I don't like when Dak Prescott is throwing 50 times a game. That team is better when Dak Prescott is throwing that 25 to 30 times a game, maybe 35, and he's throwing that 300 pass range. And that's not saying Dak can't throw 500, but he's better when he's throwing that, when he's that 22 of 28, 310 or 2 touchdowns. You know what I'm saying? Ezekiel Elliott gets about 100 yards, or let's say he gets 80. Tony Pollard gets 75. You know what I mean? That's when they're good. That's when the team is better. We've seen it last year. The team is better when it operates that way, and that's what they need to me have in mind. They need to have balance. That's the main thing. Balance.
Yeah. I agree 100%. And I think all that starts with the trenches. They have to actually get better play from the offensive line. They need more consistency because, when they were dominant, they were, I think, better in the run blocking than they were the pass blocking. Like even when they were at their peak as a unit around 2014, 2015, 2016, that 3-year run there. It was the run game that worked, and that was it. You had the balance for that 3-year stretch. Now, unfortunately, 2015 was such an injury nightmare for everyone that you didn't really get to enjoy the spoils of it. But if they can do that, if they can protect Dak, you can get better production out of him, because obviously you saw last year once he strained the calf, that messed him up the rest of the year. Like, I don't know how much of it was mental at that point, how much he was kind of protecting it and not wanting to push off that leg the same way, and that then altered his mechanics a little bit. But it felt like he definitely became more resistant and kind of pulling back on some of the throws he would have taken shots at earlier on in the season, things like that. So if they can protect him a little better, and if they can hold up their own better in the run game, then they're going to spring some opportunities for that, and they're going to allow their offense to have better balance, despite the fact that they don't have as much talent as they did last year. So that's the line is everything. The line is, I would say, probably the most crucial part for me of this team, because I think the defense is still going to be good, but we need to see the single unit that needs to show improvement to me, like the most improvement, is probably the offensive line, because I felt like once that went to hell last year, the season kind of did. We just didn't want to see it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happened in the San Francisco game. The offensive line played like trash, and we got blown out the water, because not blown out the water as far as point wise, but we got manhandled, and it all started with the trenches. Leo Collins, Tyron Smith had issues. I mean, Dak Prescott was running for his life for first damn series of the game, and when I saw that, I said, it's going to be that game. That's the first thing I thought in my head when I saw the first 3 plays of that game, and I saw Dak running for his life, like on the 3rd down. I was like, yep, this is going to be that type of game. I knew it. And that's the thing I hate, when I actually can look at my team and see how they play within the first 3 plays, know how it's going to be. That's frustrating for me as a Cowboys fan, because that's it. I shouldn't have to feel that way. You know what I'm saying, DDP? I shouldn't have to feel that after the first 3 plays of the game, I know how this game is going to go. You know what I mean? That's the problem. With too many times Dallas, they beat the teams that they're supposed to. They out physical and dominate, run for 250 some yards in a game against the Carolina Panthers. They wasn't good last year, or the New York Giants that weren't that. You know what I mean? Teams that they're supposed to beat. But it's one of these teams that they are supposed to. This is the game that you got to show, because I feel like when they played New England, that was okay. I feel like we're getting here. But then you go throw duds against the Cardinals, you throw a dud against the Chiefs, the Raiders, you get beat up against the Broncos. Like, those are the teams that you're looking to measure yourself against. And this theme is always, to me, is we always get out physical in those games. If you look at those teams, and when you lose those games, you saw they got manhandled up front and got out physical. And I think that's going to have to stop. And I think they said they're going to address that in the draft, and they went after, like I said, the Tyler Smith and those type of guys. But we still got to see it. And what I want to say was let's go, the kid from North Dakota. But once again, We love the talent, 6'8", 312 pounds, and he played good in the Senior Bowl. But he still came from North Dakota. We don't know if we're throwing him out there against these
Right.
top guys, and he's supposed to be the swing tackle. So it's a lot of questions. We're going to have to see. I need to see if they're going to Josh Ball. Is he going to be anything? You draft him in the 4th round. He didn't see the field. You know what I mean? We have to see these things because that offensive line has to develop. Is Tyler Biadasz, is he going to finally entrench himself as a center? Because if he doesn't show it this year the way they're saying it, he's going to be gone. But at the end of the day, if you look at his numbers, he wasn't terrible this past season. So, like I said, it's a lot of question marks. Things need to be shown. Terrence Steele, he's going to be your starting right tackle for the whole year now because Leo Collins is gone. But, Terrence Steele, he was undrafted. Is he going to do what he did in the second part of the season to earn that job? That's one player I ain't gonna lie, DDP, that I'm excited to see because how hard he works. He was a project coming in, but we liked the talent, but we didn't know what he would do. Me and Boss were talking about him when he came out of school, and Dallas picked him up. But he worked his butt off, and you see how much better he got. So I think that's what you like about him, and he's athletic. I like what they have in Terrence Steele. Obviously, you got Zach Morton. I think Tyler Badish is going to be okay. I think what you're worried about is to see how quick Tyler Smith can develop at that left guard. And then you have to worry about Tyron Smith because he's going to be hurt 3 to 4, maybe 5 games. They're already talking about his back hurting.
Yeah, I know. That's a good sign when we're not even in camp yet. Yeah,
and he's supposed to be the best shape of his life again. That's the guy.
Every player ever says that. Like that, it's the most stereotypical thing to say. Like it means nothing at this point. Like what player? It means
nothing with him for sure.
Sure, but what player ever came to camp and was like, you know what? I actually feel like kind of like shit this year. Like I feel like I'm probably like 15 pounds overweight. My back's kind of achy. I had to lean over to fart the other day, and I think I might have pulled something actually. Like nobody comes into train camp saying stuff like that. Everyone's always like, "Oh, best shape of my life. Feel like I could do whatever." Like it means nothing to me, and that's why it doesn't matter if it's Dak saying it, Zeke saying it, Tyron saying it. I'm always like, show me on the field. Like get through the first month of the season and have look as good, if not better, than you've ever looked, and then I'll be like, damn, okay, yeah, like. Dak, the Tampa Bay game last year, the opener, Dak in that game was like, holy shit, okay, yeah, I'm buying in. Now, after the calf injury, that dropped off, but Dak prior to that injury on the last play of the New England game, sensational last year. So, I mean, that's everything, that's something I would classify as if he was. Now they didn't say it with him last year because he was coming off of the surgery with the ankle and everything, and then he had the shoulder strain in camp or mini camp, whatever. It is what it is, but it's like if you had him say that coming in, and then he had that run through the first 6 or 7 weeks like he did, I would say he's actually backing it up. I see it. I now in retrospect believe that, but. This stuff, nah, man, I got to see it. I'm not buying anything until I see the initial return.
I'm not drinking no more Kool-Aid, dog. I drank that Kool-Aid. I drank gallons of that shit last year, and I ain't touching that stuff this year. I don't care what they tell me. I don't care who's in the best shape of their life. I don't care how good Dak is in shape. I don't care how they look. They're going together. That's all good that they're training together, and that does get better. That gets you better as a team. But at this point, in my opinion, I'm not hearing that no more from these Cowboys. I'm not listening to that no more because too many times they say these things, and there's too many failures, too many false shortcomings, big games, shortcomings, playoff shortcomings. So I'm not hearing none of the talk about, we're so much better now, and we're this and we're that and we're this. Nah, that don't mean nothing no more because talk is cheap. So we'll see. Like I said, we'll see. We'll see how this offensive line goes. But I just don't want to hear any more of this talk. Just play ball.
Yeah, no, I agree. So let's see. Before we get out of here, let's open the floor for a couple quick questions here. Got time for 3 or 4 quick questions? Hit us up in the chat. What you want? Mavs Cowboys open floor. Oh man.
Yeah, for
So
sure. Oh well, Sadiq, Miss Sadiq with Miss Charles. Um,
keeps
Anthony
asking
Barr
about.
is not
Yeah.
not Anthony Barr, but Christian Wood was a player that the Mavericks picked up via they traded,
Trade.
right? They via trade,
Hmm.
and 6'10", double guy, hella athletic. They get on him about his defense, but bruh, just go and watch him, Miss Charles. Christian Wood, look him up. You'll like what you see.
Yep. Cowboys Nation. How should we play with the 3 wide receivers we have? My opinion: screen routes, deep ball to Dak, reach. Not quite sure what he's saying at the end of that, but basically, how should we feature our receivers? I think definitely want to work that intermediate a little bit and mix it up with some of the deep options you have. CD doesn't have blazing speed, but he is shifty. So I think CD can work well in that intermediate to a little bit deep, but like your deep ball option, if you can really get that working with Washington, or when he comes back, if he can still provide it, Gallup, that gives you a real option. But I think you win in a lot of that intermediate between CD and Tolbert if he's as advertised.
I mean, I'm agree with that as far as the intermediate routes, especially with CD. Move him around. I think that's the biggest thing that you want to do with these receivers. Move them around, find them in favorable matchups. Don't just come to the line of scrimmage every single time and have them in the same kind of sets. Move these guys around, put them in positions where they can really find mismatches and really see that. I think that's the biggest thing with me. If you see there's a mismatch out there, go after it. Don't sit there and like I said, I don't want to see them going all deep 9 routes and things of that nature. You really got to work that middle. That's where Dak is good at, that middle. But Dak's got to be able to hit that deep ball as well. He's got to be able to connect on that when it's there, and he's got to be able to take it. I think that's one of the things when those routes are there. He's got to be able to take it, not kind of check down, because I know he will do that. I know where CD is really good in that middle part of the area, that 12 to 15 yard range where he can usually be able to get the ball and usually yards after catch it, because that's where CD is really good after he gets his hands on the ball. But like I said, they still got to be able to take those shots, and when them shots are there, Dak has got to take them, and he can't check those down.
Turn it loose.
So yeah, he's got to turn it loose this year. He's just got to be reckless abandon. I think that's one of the things we're all talking about with John Kitna, that we missed with Kitna, because Kitna kind of gave him that oomph. And hopefully he does that. I think there was another question from my dog Vondell Jackson asking about Anthony Barr. Do we think we could get him? I've been screaming Anthony Barr since December, man.
Yeah.
And I don't really understand what the holdup is. I feel like he'd be a great addition as far as the veteran leadership. He's not washed up. I mean, he played I think he missed like 5 games, still had like over 70 tackles. So he's not a washed up player. He has familiarity with the coaching staff. I think that just works, and I don't think he's going to be super expensive. And I think he wants to come here, and they already had him on the radar when he was coming out of college. So I just feel like that's a win-win. Dallas's depth at the linebacker, me and you had already talked about this in a previous show, that the linebacker depth is shaky. And if you have an injury, that's really bad. And you still have Jabril Cox still coming back from injury. Damone Clark is not playing, who you drafted in the 5th round. Jabril Cox is still coming back from injury. LVE, even though he played 17 games, still has the injury bug by his name. So you can't just rely on that and think that that's going to be healthy. And they got to be able to address it. And I think they should go ahead and address it now. So I don't know if they will, because we know what Stephen Jones does, but I don't think he's touching anybody else out there besides maybe Anthony Barr. They talked about maybe Adama Sue, but I don't think that's going to happen because of the money.
Yeah, that's probably the holdup there. Let's see. Stephen Lupton asks Mavs. He says Mavs need another top line scorer to compete in the West. Who do you go get? I don't know that they need another top line scorer at this point, because you would have said last year, or this year that we just wrapped up, that they didn't have that going into the postseason. Yet they got all the way to the Western Conference Finals because Jalen Brunson proved to be more than we thought he was. Even going into the playoffs, we did not see him averaging 21, dropping 30 multiple times, dropping 40, becoming one of just 4 Mavericks to drop 40 in a playoff game. Like, did not envision that. So you see that, and I think you do have the scoring lift you need. You have the potential for it there, because as streaky as he is, Dinwiddie can go off and give you 30. He did it. He can give you solid performances. You have Christian Wood, who playing with not a good Houston team, was still able to efficiently give you 18 and 10. Now you're going to set him up with a guy that can spoon feed him everything and give him perfect looks. A guy whose game is a perfect fit offensively, is a perfect fit as far as the athletic ability he brings around the rim, the violence with which he plays, and who can still shoot 39% from three. Like, yeah, that's a perfect fit for this offense and someone that would have made a huge difference. So I don't know that they need another quote top line scorer. I do have a feeling that there is another move that they're getting in on, that they're going to do something, and it's going to be something sizable. At this point, I honestly don't know what it is, because it's certain things are dragging out still, where we're still trying to figure out, like, okay, there's several pieces that are waiting here. Utah still has several guys. They traded Gobert, but they still have several guys from that yard sale that's going to happen, essentially. You still have KD and Kyrie both in a holding pattern in Brooklyn. So there's a lot. Ayton hasn't even signed anywhere yet. And to be clear, I'm not saying Ayton, there goes one. I'm not saying Ayton is, that's always how I know it's about time to wrap up. Not saying Ayton is going to be in that list. Obviously, they got enough centers and front court guys as is. But the point is, there's still a lot left to be decided. Like, usually free agency fizzles out within a week. Yet we're still sitting here with a lot of really intriguing pieces out there. And I think that leaves the door open for any number of moves.
Yeah, I mean, I feel you with that. Just kind of bouncing off of the last few questions up here. Q Dog says, what receiver would you trade for? And then kind of Troy Dudley says, do the Cowboys need to pick up some speed, someone like Will Fuller? So I can kind of answer both of those. First, Here's the thing. I try to think how like the Joneses think. I don't try to think how I think. So Dallas ain't trading for no receivers. Okay, that's not going to happen. That's something that I can hypothetically speak about it, but it's not fun to hypothetically talk about something that I know it's not going to happen. You feel me? And Dallas ain't trading for a receiver. That thing that happened with Amari Cooper was a rare thing in the earth that just happened with Stephen Jones, and he felt so good about it. So Dallas ain't going to do that. Now, as far as the Will Fuller thing, does Dallas need to get more speed? I don't know if they need to get some more speed. The guy I was frustrated with, I like Will Fuller, but he is injury prone. He had a lot of injuries. He does have the speed, but he has a lot of injuries. So you got to keep an eye on that, because he injury prone. So we don't know how much he'll be on the field. Guy I was frustrated they didn't get was Jarvis Landry. They didn't spend a lot of money in New Orleans to get him, and I felt like that was the type of attitude guy that the Cowboys needed. He's good with the intermediate routes that Dak likes to do. He gets attitude, he blocks, he plays hard, and he has that type of thing where he wants everybody else to play on that level, and I think that's what the Cowboys needed. Now, I know there were rumblings and hearing about Julio Jones. I don't think that would be a bad thing if he would be affordable to bring a Julio Jones on here. Why not for a year? That's not going to hurt anything. Whose egos is it hurting right now? CeeDee Lamb's still going to be the guy. Michael Gallup's still going to come back, be the guy. Why wouldn't you use a Julio Jones in a lesser role? So if the money worked with that, everybody's saying he's washed up. I mean, maybe he is, but if the money worked, I wouldn't be mad at something like that. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, when I think about Stephen Jones, I just don't think he's going to do anything. I think he's going to look at what we got or we're good at, and I don't feel that way, because God forbid you have an injury with CeeDee Lamb, and then you're all messed up right now.
Yeah, no, I agree, and my reluctance anytime to put a lot of expectations on rookies in general. Like we were talking about Hardy earlier, but same goes for Tolbert here. It's like, I'm fascinated by it. I want to see him get some reps. I know there's already people saying like the expectation is he's going to start come first week. And it's like, I just kind of, like obviously Gallup out, right? So it's like, I just want to take it with a grain of salt and basically say like, yeah, you're not going to be stunting his development if you have a year of like a Julio or something. And I agree, if Landry would have been a perfect fit, I think the Browns kind of culture shift, at least as far as the locker room and attitude, started a couple years ago, even before they had the number one pick, and that ended up being Baker. I think that started with Landry when they brought him in. I thought that brought like a certain attitude to it, and it kind of fell apart, I think, once they kept adding some of the guys that they did. I don't know that, obviously it didn't work out with Odell, and the Baker experiment failed there too, but I think a lot of credit went to him, and that was absolutely someone that I was like, okay, Dallas, at least take a look at him. And they didn't. And you see, like, okay, he goes to New Orleans, and it's not even that expensive to get him. And it's like, okay, that's frustrating. That just shows that, like, it's the Stephen Jones thing. It's like, okay, well, we already drafted a wide receiver, and we like his ceiling of what we think he can be, so we're just gonna retool. Just always retool. Doesn't matter if we're, rather than stacking the blocks taller and taller, it's just like we constantly like, all right, knock it down, start over, knock it down, start over. And it's just like, I don't know. It feels defeatist. It feels like we're not trying to actually get to the top. It just feels like we're content in the middle ground as long as we're exciting and in the running for the playoffs every year, or I think we are.
I mean, that's what it is. Spot on. That's the last thing you kind of want to say on that. I mean, that's what I feel about it. Is like, as long as they feel like as long as they're competitive and they're competing, people are coming still talking about the Cowboys, and they're still in the media, then it's not bad. It's not bad for them, and we still got time to get it right, and that's what they feel because there's no pressure on them. But just kind of finishing off on that receiver thing, and just in the whole offense in general. My guy, Coach Marv, shout out to him on the $2 holler when he was talking about Anthony Barr, protecting the LVE. Yeah, I feel that way too. They love him in the ways, but says if they can't find a way to use a talent like TP, then we don't have. He said we can't bring no receiver in use for the team. Right, facts. Basically saying if we can't use TP as a receiver and can't figure out how to get him in there, how are we going to bring another receiver in from off the streets and incorporate him? Because that is the thing. Because when Tony Pollard came out of the University of Memphis, he was receiver / running back, kick returner. When he went, they keep on saying when he went to the Senior Bowl, his agent, his peoples were telling him to play receiver. They didn't want him playing running back. They wanted him to play receiver. So that should tell you right there, he can play it. So the problem is this. Once again, Kellen Moore, you're 33 years old. It's not like you had garbage offenses. You said it. 2 of the 3 years, you had the number 1 yardage in the league. So you can score. You can score points. The thing is, get your playmakers on the field. There can be no excuse of why Tony Pollard is not on that field heavily this year. If that is not happening this year, then you know what? I ain't got nothing to say. I ain't got nothing to say.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. But I think that's gonna do it for the time we got here. We've been going about an hour and a half. Pretty good length show here. Salute to everyone who turned out as I shut out the lights, or maybe it's just the grid. Who knows? As I'm plunged into darkness here. But yeah, good show. Let's see. What do we need to touch on for our wrap up here?
Man, just basically, get ready for, like I said, training camp is like literally right around the corner. I think it's like in a few weeks. So obviously we're going to be talking about that. Get some good film. I don't know if I'm going to be out there. I got some things going on, so we'll see how that goes. But regardless, we're still going to have some good tape. I talked to some people, so we'll have some good film. So, we'll see. That's what really the excitement right now is, to see what they're going to look like in some training camp heading into the season. Football season is right around the corner. I mean, it's like, 50-something days, 60, I think 58 days or something like that now. And it doesn't even feel like that, DDP. Like, it really doesn't in my heart. It's like, damn, it's like literally like less than 2 months, bro. Like, it don't feel like it.
Right. Yeah. It's creeping up. But yeah, we got that, and we got I'm sure, like I said, I feel it in my bones. There's something. Mavericks are working on something. I don't know what.
I hope so. I'm going to feel it off of you.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I feel like the Mavericks are working on something, and it's going to be either a multi-team or a multiplayer move. And I'm curious to see what it looks like, because they've been quiet for a little while here, and I'm still just kind of looking at some of the second unit in particular, and thinking like, all right, so how you're built right now. You got parts you need to upgrade. You got adjustments you need to make, because your second unit might be able to score, but you don't have enough defensive balance. You've got certain needs here that you've let viable options walk for. So something's coming. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure we'll have that, or at the very least, we'll have the option to talk about like, oh, okay, well, they didn't get on this, or they didn't land this guy, but they were in the mix, or whatever. Let's talk about that. There'll be something going on. So we'll be here to talk about it. We'll run it down. And then once the season winds up, we'll have all kinds of joy to really break down. We'll have that exciting part of the year too eventually when we get to this point where the seasons overlap for just a small part of the year, and we'll have all kinds of great stuff. We'll get all kinds of people in the house for that.
Yeah, definitely. And just make sure you continue to go follow our pages, Dallas Prospect with DDP. Make sure you go give like, follow, all subscriptions, all that. You can find them out there on Twitter as well. Myself, Big Game James. You can check me on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Like I said, continue to support. Give us some like, follow, shares, all that good stuff. The more you support, the better this is. So we're excited about what the seasons on both ends. Like you said, they're both going to be intertwining. So we'll give you a lot of good back and forth. Before, because we couldn't do it before, DDP was doing over there, I was doing over here, but now we're doing a combination, and it's going to be through the whole season of Mavs and Cowboys. So have fun over here, because we will. Stay tuned.
Peace.